Hello everyone, my name is Dana Brown, and today me and my partner Alimah are going to be talking about Black femininity in the media. When we think about the media, we usually think about entertainment, social media, celebrities, movies, or reality TV. But media also shapes the way people see different groups of people in real life. The way Black women are represented can influence how society treats them, how they are expected to act, and even how they see themselves. For a long time, Black women in media have been placed in stereotypes instead of being shown as full, complex people. They are often portrayed as overly aggressive, overly sexual, loud, masculine, or expected to be strong all the time. Even though media has changed over time, many of these stereotypes still exist today, just in different forms. In this presentation, we will be able to connect historical ideas about Black womanhood to modern media representation. We will specifically look at the work of Bell Hooks, who was a Black feminist author and activist, and also Sojourner Truth, who challenged racism and sexism long before modern media even existed. Then we'll connect their ideas to reality TV and social media today. The main point of this presentation is to show that the way Black women are represented in media is not random. A lot of these stereotypes have deep historical roots, and they continue to affect the way Black femininity is viewed today. First, I want to talk about Bell Hooks. Bell Hooks was an author, feminist, and social activist who wrote a lot about race, gender, and the experiences of Black women. One thing that made her work so important was that she pointed out how many social movements claim to fight for equality while still ignoring Black women. For example, she argued that Black liberation movements often focus on majority Black men and expected Black women to support them while ignoring the sexism within those spaces. At the same time, the women's liberation movement mainly centered white women and ignored the racism Black women experienced. Because of this, Black women were constantly stuck in the middle. They were expected to fight against racism and sexism at the same time while also being overlooked by both groups. Bell Hooks also talked about how Black women were often portrayed in extreme ways. On one side, they were masculinized and seen as overly strong, aggressive, or emotionally hard. On the other side, they were hypersexualized and treated more like objects than actual people. What's interesting is that even though Bell Hooks was writing years ago, her ideas are still relevant to today. A lot of the stereotypes she criticized still show up in modern entertainment, especially on reality TV and social media platforms where conflict and drama get the most attention. Her work helps us understand that representation is important because media affects how people think. If audiences constantly see Black women represented through stereotypes, eventually those stereotypes start to feel normal or true to society. This connects directly to modern reality TV shows like Baddies. Shows like this are popular because they focus on conflict, aggression, drama, and sexuality. The women are often encouraged to argue, fight, yell, or act in extreme ways because that kind of content gets views and attention online. According to Bell Hooks' ideas, these portrayals can reinforce both hypersexualization and masculinization of Black women. On one side, the women are often sexualized through the way they dress, the camera angles, or the way their bodies are focused on for entertainment. But at the same time, they're also frequently portrayed as aggressive, confrontational, emotionally hard, and constantly ready to fight. Because of this, Black women in these shows can end up being viewed as less feminine or more aggressive or hard compared to how femininity is usually portrayed for white women in media. Instead, the softness or vulnerability being highlighted, aggression and conflict are what gets rewarded with attention and virility. The issue is not that Black women should never express confidence, sexuality, or anger. The problem is when those qualities become the main or only representation audiences can see. When media repeatedly pushes these images, it can make stereotypes feel normal to the viewers. Social media can also increase this issue because clips from reality TV spread quickly on apps like TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Usually, the moments that go viral are the arguments, fights, or dramatic scenes rather than the calm or emotional moments. This reflects a lot of the concerns bell hooks talked about years ago. Media often profits from exaggerated portrayals of Black women instead of showing them as fully human and multidimensional people. At the same time, there has been some progress in representation because more Black women are being shown as intelligent, creative, soft, and emotionally vulnerable in different types of media. But stereotypes connected to aggression and hypersexualization are still very visible and profitable in entertainment today. Another important figure connected to this topic is Sojourner Truth. Sojourner Truth was an abolitionist and women's rights activist who is best known for her famous speech, "Ain't I a Woman?" In this speech, she challenged both racism and sexism by pointing out how Black women were treated differently from white women. At the time, white women are often viewed as delicate, soft, feminine, and deserving of protection. Black women, however, were denied that same femininity and respect. Sojourner Truth explained how she worked hard, endured slavery, and faced pain while still not being seen as equally womanly in society's eyes. Her speech challenged the idea that Black women were somehow less feminine or less deserving than white women. Another important point is that her speech was later rewritten in ways that challenged how she sounded. Some versions exaggerated her speech and made her seem less educated, which contributed to the stereotypes like the mammy stereotype. This matters because it shows that Black women's voices and identities have historically been distorted to fit stereotypes created by society. When we connect this back to modern media, we can see that many of the same issues still exist. Black women are still often forced into stereotypes instead of being represented authentically and fully. Both Sojourner Truth and bell hooks challenged the way Black women were misunderstood and misrepresented even though they lived in completely different time periods. Their ideas helped explain why representation still matters to this day.
From historical stereotypes to modern media, bell hooks and Sojourner Truth both critique the intersection of race and gender to make the stereotypes and misrepresentation of Black women in the 20th century known. However, reading about the experiences of both women, we can see the same adapted stigmas being replicated in the modern media in more subtle ways. For social media platforms portray Black women in negative conflicts of violence. Black women's trauma is often ignored, minimized, or reduced to a joke. This is an example of misogynoir, dehumanizing Black women in media spaces. Does this seem familiar? Almost like the same exclusion happened to Black women in reform movements or oversimplification of Sojourner Truth's speech. Colorism. According to Jones research, there is a direct relationship of skin tone satisfaction with body image satisfaction. Lighter-skinned women have a lower risk factor for being associated to racial aggression. Media representation often chooses to pick lighter-skinned leads to separate their brand from that ideology. This is further restricting the meaning of femininity for Black women by skin tone. Now, when we look at the chart, you can see how high of a percentage that the media covers for tone A. And then when you look at tone D, it significantly drops all the way to about 9% in comparison to the 27% from the other tones. Now, when we do the summary, you can see that the Black aesthetics continue to shape mainstream culture, yet are often rebranded or devalued when their origins aren't respected. Media platforms such as social media and film continue to reveal a pattern where Black creativity is selectively celebrated depending on who presents it. The way You, Me, and Tuscany was received by the public highlights, however, positive Black-led stories are still scrutinized. Colorism also further complicates representation because we see this restriction of the perception of Black femininity even further. These examples show that Black women's influence, representation, and treatment in the media are closely connected, revealing consistent patterns across trends, film, and beauty standards.